So you're running out of closet space. The good news? You don't need to stop shopping. You just need to start selling with The RealReal. The RealReal is the world's largest and most trusted resource for authenticated luxury resale. Whether it's that mini bag that can't even fit your phone, or those boots you never fully broke in, The RealReal handles everything from photography and copywriting to shipping and pricing. So you can just sit back, get paid, and make room for things that actually feel like you. And with 10,000 plus new arrivals every single day from top designers like Prada, Celine, Louis Vuitton, and Loewe, all for up to 90% off retail, you're bound to find something perfectly on brand to fill that extra closet space with. Plus, right now, you can get an extra $100 to shop when you sell for the first time. Make room for what feels like you. Go to therealreal.com to start selling and get your extra $100 to keep shopping at therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com. Terms apply.
Nice to meet you. I'm glad that we got our tech issues out of the way. I'm going to believe that's the only thing that we have happened today. Okay. I wouldn't normally start with saying something like this, but I'm like amazed that you do anything with 5 children, because 3 was a bit more than I knew what to do with. So I just want to acknowledge that. Wow. How old are your kids?
They are currently 24, 22, 19, just about to be 17 and 12.
Oh my gosh. What can I ask what their genders are?
I've got 3 girls and 2 boys. It literally goes girl, boy, girl, boy, girl.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw someone on TikTok with a family like that the other day, and I always wondered, like, are the girls like closer, or do the ones, does the age, like the closer in age, like matter?
I would say for our family, it's the age, that because it
Okay.
doesn't much matter gender-wise. Although they're all super close with each other.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of amazing. Even my ends, right? You'd think, well, 12 years, that's a big difference. They are still really close with each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Granted, there's different, like, my 24-year-old is going through different life experiences right now,
Sure.
but she really relates to the 12-year-old because she's been there.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just was curious because I'm so fascinated by families. Okay. So I was reading again through your press stuff and what you do, and I'm really curious what led you to get into the work that you're doing.
I would say that it was my own personal experience. And what I mean by that is I was at a point in my life, especially as a mom, where I was witnessing as my children were getting older, and it was especially my middle daughter, I was witnessing a lot of people pleasing and a lot of perfectionist tendencies and overfunctioning. And it was the moment where I recognized that was a reflection of how I have been showing up. Like that was the catalyst moment. And then it was an invitation to say, how, because I could see how it was somewhat holding my daughter back and my other children too, because they're very perfectionistly set up.
Yeah.
And recognize that I needed to do work on myself so that I could help shift that trajectory. So certain limiting beliefs, as an example, were not continued generation by generation, right? I could interrupt it. So I did my own personal work. And through that process, business-wise, I was a project manager by trade. And so I've always been, in communication with people. What do you need? What resources? How do we get this project to fruition? What I recognized as I was going through my own development, though, was my real calling was to work with people, continue work with people on their success, but it was, I want to work on personal success. I want to actually help people understand themselves on that deeper level, understand their patterns, right? That might not be serving them as they once did. Because here's the truth about patterns. They serve us for a certain amount of time. My people pleaser absolutely served me for a certain amount of time, but there came a plateau with it where it's no longer, it's actually holding me back instead of continuing to serve me. But that's, the long answer to your question of it was personal experience that drew me in first. And then I brought in what I had done professionally and said, okay, well, now I want to go train in this. I want to actually get formalized training in coaching and then do some specialty training so that I can bring the two things together, experience and training, and help people honestly live their best life.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm wondering too what your thoughts are on this. Do you see, because I feel like this was a sneaky way that perfectionism, um, this was not as much how it showed up in my life, but it is how I see it in a couple of my kids and others. Um, the fear of beginning something because they cannot get through the yucky part of not being great at something the second they start. And do
Yes.
you see how, like, do you notice people being resistant to the idea that that is actually perfectionism? Because I really, like, if I try to say that to my 23-year-old, not everything's pathology, mom. Okay, well, it
Yeah.
is, but that's okay. Actually, everything has a root, but that's fine.
Right, right, right. He just doesn't want to hear it from a
He's tired of
pathologizing
hearing it.
perspective. Right.
Yes.
Yes, I have seen in my own children that they will not want to try something because they don't know how to be a master at it from the
Yes.
very beginning. And
Yes.
that is it's like there's different types of perfectionism, right? So
Uh-huh.
sometimes there's the internal perfectionist. I have to be I have to be a master at this. I have to do it perfectly well. We hold ourselves to this high standard. We can also be externalizing perfectionists where we expect others to live up to these really high expectations and we want them to be perfect. And I know that I parent coach, right? So this is something that I talk about with a lot of parents is where is it? Let's draw the line between your expectations and your child, right? Because they are holding them to this really high standard. And I'm not saying we don't hold our kids to a high standard, but there's a difference between high standard and wanting them to be perfect.
Absolutely. And here's the deal, our narratives are liars. And so we can get really solid on the things that we believe and think, no, that's just how it is, or
Mm-hmm.
that's the right way or whatever. And not realize how off we are from hitting the mark with what we're trying to do, but where we
Right.
actually are is communicating this standard that if you don't meet my expectations, you're not doing it good enough. And it took me a hot second to realize some of the ways that perfectionism was showing up in terms of my expectations for others. I had to
Right.
realize, okay, I'm holding myself to this standard in terms of, because I thought one of the biggest ways that I realized was like, if I tell you that something you're doing is impacting me, if you care about me, you're literally never going to do that thing again. From the second I bring it up to you, you're
Right.
going to respond perfectly and say, Melissa, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And also, I'm never doing that again, and then
Right.
never do it again. And
Right.
hello, why is that too much to ask? It's so comical to me now because it took so many layers of like scraping away to get that that's what I was expecting. And then I was like, okay, well, why am I expecting that of them? And I realized, oh, it's because I'm expecting that of myself too.
Yes.
Now, I was smart enough to realize, well, I'm not perfect either. Like, I'm not going to hit the mark every time. But what I can do is offer you accountability in by way of like, crucifying myself over and over and over and making myself feel like the most horrible human being if I do commit this sin again. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just over and
Mm-hmm.
over the repeating the cycle. And no wonder I'm building this world of expectations for others that
Mm-hmm.
are impossible because that's
Right.
what I'm expecting of myself.
Exactly. It's an internalization, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's our own, we talk about that routinely, right? That we end up projecting out what's going on inside, right? We see
Yes.
something in someone else and it's really an invitation to say, okay, what's happening with me in regards to this?
That was a tough one for me. That was tough. When I started, like, because there's been several things that I've learned, but it didn't resonate right away. But I
Right.
believed it. So I
Right.
was like, well,
Yep.
let's test that theory then. And so there's been several different ways that I've been like, okay, we'll see. If I find myself judging this in them, then what does that say about me? Like, what am I judging in me? I bet nothing because clearly. And then I'd be like, oh. I do that too. I do that
Oh,
too.
there's
Whoa,
that.
that's tough.
Yes,
That's tough.
yes,
But I was
yes.
just telling a client last night, like, well, let's remember all the good things that you see in this person and their potential are really the things in you that are good that you're not able to see. And all the things that you're projecting out negatively about others are also
Mhm,
the things that you can't see about yourself. So
mhm,
give that some
mhm,
thought for this week. But what are a couple of things in terms, because I have an 11-year-old
mhm,
and she's we've I feel like we're getting somewhere on some of these like she's getting better at like trying stuff, like because
mhm,
for a while it was not great. And but as I've grown and learned these things in myself, it's a little easier to communicate it to her. But there are still some little hiccups here and there where she just has such a hard time not meeting her teacher's standards. And
mhm.
Today, I want to share a book series that truly meets you where you are. Letters to Myself by Jen Taylor, LCSW, is a powerful collection written by a New York based spiritual psychotherapist with over 23 years of experience. Each volume invites you to write your way through trauma, healing, and self compassion, from sexual assault and abuse to bullying and cult recovery. These aren't just books you read, they're books you work with. If you're ready to reflect, release, and reconnect with yourself, search Letters to Myself by Jen Taylor on Amazon today, and I will also have a link in the show notes.
and also, not every teacher's gonna love you, honey. Like she
Right,
has a teacher right now, one out of like six, that
right,
she's not her favorite student, and it's very
right.
obvious. And I don't
Mhm,
get it because she's so cute and sweet. But like, okay, she's not your vibe. That's fine. Uh,
right.
it starts to feel a little like you're picking on her a little bit, but it's also,
Mm,
nothing's crossed the line. So it's like, okay, whatever. But I've had to be like, honey, we're not going to be everyone's favorite. But that doesn't
mhm,
make you any less special. But what
right.
are a couple of things that you have done that you work with people on that really can give kids some sort of understanding about what they're experiencing and how to overcome it?
Well, okay, a couple ways that I want to address that. The first thing that I would say is that what I really do is validate, right? The very first thing I always do is validate because as human beings, regardless of our age, we need to be seen and heard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially our kiddos, they really want to be seen. They really want to be acknowledged. So just validating, like, yes, that's really hard to be in that situation where you're not the teacher's favorite because it's uncomfortable. And maybe part of it is she's used to being the teacher's favorite. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing and the other aspect, so the first one is to just validate and to honor and maybe even bring in after doing that, like bringing in some personal experience with that. But the other way to, how we're trying to explain and trying to get our kiddos to see, you're not always going to be somebody's perfect person, is to put it in their terms of, how they feel about other people. Like, is every single person their person? They don't always vibe with every single person they meet. And that's okay, right? And really get them to get to this place of recognize, like, oh, yeah, I don't vibe with every single person. Oh, I'm having this expectation that I have to do more, expectation of self that I need to do more to get her to
Yeah.
like me. And now, but when we put it in, we flip it that 180 degrees. So we're changing the viewpoint. They're able to say, oh, yeah. And that person doesn't have to do any more to get me to like them. Like we're just not each other's person. We can be
Yeah.
cordial to each other, but we don't have to be each other's best bud. Well, and now they're able to see their relationship with the teacher or whoever slightly differently.
Ooh, I like that. Because sometimes this is so wild to me, but just last night I was laying there thinking about her, and there's a situation that I want to talk to her about. And I was like, well, how do I talk to her about that without like creating shame, like you've done something wrong? It was
Mm-hmm.
just me overhearing some gossip. And um like I try really hard to do that from your perspective, but it's not always easy to find the way to say it to where, because, okay, I'm sorry, but this is what's popping up in my brain. But for instance, I used to work in an elementary school as a school counselor. One of my duties was after school bus duty, okay? And there was this little girl who was being really mean to another little girl about her hair. And the other teachers were like, well, how would you feel if we were like, your hair's ugly, blah, 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 right?
Right.
And this girl's bawling. I mean, it felt a little bullying, but, this girl's
Mhm.
crying. And I could tell she feels like they're saying your hair is ugly because,
Right.
I mean, they kind of are, but that's not their intention. So that's this experience I was drawing on last night. Like, I don't want it to be like, how would you feel if? So I couldn't figure out how to get her to look at something from her perspective without being like, how would you feel if someone was doing this to you? Versus like, well, when you're doing this, you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
Mhm.
there's two ways to do that, but I don't want to do it in a way that is making her feel like I'm actually attacking her. Because even
Right.
I felt like the little girl was being attacked in that scenario, you know?
Right. Right, right, right. That's so tough, especially in those situations, because what happens when we say, "How would you feel if?" We're
Yeah.
immediately going into it's somewhat shaming verbiage, right? Because 'Cause we're basically
Yes.
saying, like, "There's something wrong with you because 'cause you're not getting this."
Right.
Right?
Right. Right.
And it's like, but as when we're dealing with children too, it's like, how do we communicate like, "Hey, let's take a look at this." And in my past, I've tried to I really do try to go to the perspective of the like, with my kids, and I'll ask questions like, "Have you ever felt this way?" Or start at the very beginning is, "What do you think that person feels?" Like, just out of curiosity, like, what do you think they feel when they hear you picking on them about their hair? And then have you ever felt that way ever in a different situation? Versus the how would you feel if, right?
Right.
Because that's like very direct in saying like there's something wrong with you. And it's
Yes.
almost like how can we back it up and have them acknowledge maybe what that person might be experiencing and also have they had an experience of that same feeling?
Yeah, I like it's the
Yeah.
follow-up, I think,
Mhm.
like, the
Mhm.
and so can you relate to that? Because I think you can.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because I've learned from my own experience, like, the only way to truly, like, connect to, like, the oneness in this humanity is to see it, like, I do that too. I've experienced that, I've seen it, I've felt it, whatever, but it's not
Mhm.
always easy for me to know how to get her in that space of, like, I do this too.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is hard with, like, preteens and adolescents and young adults because, I mean, let's just their brains aren't fully formed. So it's
Right, right.
difficult to approach it in the same way that we might with an adult individual who can
Yes.
obviously understand where we're coming from of, like, let's see how we can put ourselves in that person's perspective. So sometimes we almost have to, like we have to baby step them into it.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I remember one time I was, because I used to be a school counselor. I was working with this girl and, she was jealous about something, and someone else it was like one of those, how kids will get really mad when another kid says something excitedly that's happening in their life, and because you're jealous, you now are saying, "This girl's bragging." You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
that
Yes.
was this whole thing, and I was
Yep.
like, have you ever been excited about something? And I remember saying, like, "Have you ever felt jealous?" And she was like,
Uh-huh.
"No, no." And I was like, "Oh, well, girl, I have." And I was talking and talking. Finally, she was like, "Fine, but that's not what this is." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay." But I do so much from my own perspective when I'm talking to people and my kids that
Yep.
I was like literally racking my brain, like, I don't have one for this one. I don't. And so I don't like, I am very careful about not using shaming verbiage. So I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to approach this conversation because I don't want to like hurt her. But it's also like, stop talking shit about the neighbor girl. I mean, she's earned it, but still, that's not who we are. Come on. Um, well, so do you do, it sounds to me, and maybe I'm wrong, but is a lot of your work combined with like the overlap of teens and adults?
Yeah, I work with teens all the way through adults. I have in the past worked with little kids, but I generally will stay around the high school age towards mature adults. And generally speaking, and I'll even like with the teenagers, I generally will work with the parents as well, not
Yeah.
full fledged like we're meeting all the time, but what I try to do is sessions with the teenager and then a session with the parents, right? So that I'm not working with the teenager in silo where we're working on something and the parent has no idea, because obviously we need to be in sync with each other.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that you state from the beginning? Like, this is how I do it, and they agree to? Because as a therapist, I just quit taking teenage clients because, you do have to treat their parents, and the parents are like, oh, but no, I mean, it's not me. So, like, and I'm like, well, I'm not like blaming you for any of your kids' stuff, but also, like, you're very much a part of the system, and
Yes.
you
You're
have
part,
to be.
what you just said, they're part of the system. And I will say, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, you're
that was
fine.
a boundary that I had to set, because I used to only work with the teens, and I was finding myself actually getting really frustrated because I'd make progress. And this actually happened not long ago. I'm making progress, and in this particular case, worked with the teenager and then went off to college, and we're making great progress, but then it gets undone, right? And it's just, it hurts my heart to see that, because especially in this particular case, it was, really building confidence and autonomy and agency. And then it was like, oh, no, we're just going to.
In a world where judgment quietly shapes how we see ourselves, therapist and author Jen Taylor, LCSW, invites us into something gentler. With over 25 years as a New York based spiritual psychotherapist, Jen blends psychology, spirituality, and astrology to help women, teens, and LGBTQIA+ individuals find their way back to self-worth. In Volume 7 of the Letters to Myself, Jen explores how self-judgment becomes our harshest critic and how compassion can become our greatest healer. And for families navigating loss, her children's book, Melvin and His Magical Star, offers a tender story about grief, love, and the truth that love never disappears. Find hope, healing, and gentle guidance with Jen Taylor. I will have links for her in the show notes.
Do that. And I just realized, if from my own integrity standpoint, I need to work with both. And if they're not willing to, that's totally fine. We're just not a fit for each other. And I'm okay with that.
Exactly. Boy, it's funny how we have to learn these lessons in practice, because I've had to set, like, I was dreaming about like a new list of, I'm going to use the word expectations for like when new clients are coming on, because there's just been several little things that have happened where I'm like, I probably should have set a boundary around that. Okay. So for next time, I'm going to have that in my
Yep.
little list. But
Yes.
it's funny how you have to learn some of that by fire sometimes. But yes, because here's the deal. The truth is if you're a part of a toxic family system, when you flourish and start to create some boundaries around yourself, you become the black sheep of that family.
Yes, you do. Yes. And people have lots to say about it.
You think you're so much better. I was that person. I was the golden child in my system. And then as I started to like protect myself a little bit from that system and say no and not rescue and, fall into the codependent trap, I was a lot of things, and none of them were nice. None of them were nice.
None of
I
them are
thought I was
nice.
so much better than everyone, and blah, 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 blah. And
And
then when I
ungrateful.
graduated
That's what a
college,
lot of my clients will say.
ungrateful,
Yep,
yes.
ungrateful.
Ooh,
Yep.
let's talk about that for a second, because this has been a hot topic of mine occasionally, because I get like real freaked out when I hear parents continually screaming about gratitude with their children. And I'm like, okay, it sounds to me like you're resentful of this child, and that's fair if you've been self-abandoning over and over and over, but like that's not on them, that's on you. So how are you helping systems kind of work through that?
This is a hot topic because I hear that routinely. They're so ungrateful for all that I do for them. And the first thing that I often say is, how are you communicating to them? And I don't say it in a judgy way, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's, let's dive into how we're communicating to them, because part of it is, are we appreciating our child? Our children don't get subtle affirmation. Like, they actually need us to be upfront and really direct with, I am really proud of the effort that you put into that,
Yeah.
and really actually shifting away from transactional love too, right? Or conditional love. It's, I'm really proud of you for the fact that you showed up and you did this thing, rather than I'm really proud of you for the A, right? Because
Yeah.
then that translates into, okay, this is transactional, this is conditional. I will get my parents' love and affection if I get the A,
Mm-hmm.
versus just affirming them on a daily. I'm just really proud of you for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I really love being your mom. I love being your dad, right? Just really acknowledging them as an individual. The other thing is when we start saying, we go back to how projection, right? If we're saying, oh, how ungrateful they are, I really challenge people to ask themselves, what's my own gratitude practice like? Because oftentimes that's where I say this to parents all the time, and it's not always easy to hear, but we've got to work on ourselves first. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's how we show up as conscious parents. So if we're thinking that our kiddo is ungrateful, there really is, I really invite a pause to ask, okay, what's your gratitude practice like? Where are you appreciating not just them, but appreciating stuff in your own life as well, and
Right.
appreciating yourself, right? It's
Yourself.
all about,
Yeah.
it's all
To me,
about, let's
it's like
start there first.
you're really showing how little you think of yourself if you're so reliant upon a child's gratitude or an
Right, and to
expression of it
reaffirm
anyway.
you, and to reaffirm you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And some of the stuff, like, we're talking normal everyday stuff that parents kind of need to do with their kids.
Right,
Like, I'm like,
right.
and some of it's triggering for me because my primary caregiver was my grandma. And
Mm,
I had a grandma who did that, who was very like, you need to be grateful that I am raising you and
mhm.
that, just your bare basic needs are met,
Needs? Yeah,
things like
yeah,
that. And I'm like,
yeah.
and that's the thing, is like way overextending what a child should feel the weight of.
Mhm,
Until one day I was like, I mean, I don't remember asking her to take us and
mhm,
to raise us. In fact, I wish she hadn't. So, like, how grateful you want me to be, Grandma. And so,
mhm.
I mean, I've worked through all that, but why are we expecting something of our children that we are not able to give to ourselves and others?
Right, right. The other thing that I wanna say too, and we sort of mentioned this before, we're asking our kids to show up almost as adults too. We have to
Yeah.
remember that their brains are not fully formed. I mean, truth be told, teenagers, adolescents, they are naturally very egotistical and in their own world, and that's normal.
It's developmentally
There's
appropriate.
exactly. Thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Do you ever have trouble getting a parent to understand that? Because I really see that. I don't, again, work with teenagers anymore, but
Right.
like I did it twice and I was like, I don't love this. But like
No
I
more.
see it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see it like with
Yeah.
friends and stuff, to where it's like, but it's kind of like trying to tell somebody that it's normal and appropriate for a 2-year-old to tell you no, and that your
Mhm.
response to that shouldn't be aggression.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
see the same thing in teen parents where they're like, well, they're selfish. They oh, I hear people calling kids like sociopaths because
Yes.
they lack empathy or whatever. And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't think they lack empathy. I think that they're just like up against that developmental milestone. They haven't gotten
Yes.
to the place where their consciousness has expanded to that point, and that's appropriate.
Yes. And to answer your question, yes, it is sometimes a very high hill to climb, because in certain parents' minds, it's like, no, they should, be something else. And so it is about repeating it and gently talking about it. And then also, there are books out there that I will often kind of refer back to and say, let's, I suggest maybe we read this, or, offer like 10 to 25, I think is the name of it, by Robert Yeager, which is a great book for parents to understand, that it really helps parents understand the years between, and it's 25, because let's remember,
Yeah.
brains are not fully formed. I believe they say for females it's around 26, and for males it's like 27, 28. So it's important to pay attention, and I think parents need to slow down and recognize that the brains of these children, they're still children. They're not fully formed.
Yes, yes. Even, I mean, I've taken a lot of personal flack for that, for being like, they're baby, like 18-year-olds, like, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a baby. What are you talking about? They're baby. Rock them. Like, because that's the thing, is that, I can see how easy it is to look at somebody who looks like a functioning adult.
Yes.
And try to reconcile that, like, that's not, they do not have the skills that you have. But also what it made me think of is, like, it makes me really sad because I think what those parents are saying is, well, that's what was expected of me and I did it. I rose to
And
the occasion.
and that's usually what it is.
And it's like,
It's
and
usually what
that's
it is. Yeah.
sad, honey. Like, the fact
Yeah.
that you, like, abused yourself to the point that you rose to that occasion, that's so sad
Mhm.
because I know I did.
Mhm.
That's where all that perfectionism comes from, and hypervigilance, and,
Exactly.
is like,
Exactly.
am I meeting your standards? Did I do the right
Mhm.
thing? Oh my gosh, all the time. And man, those cycles do repeat. And let me just, make it clear. I repeated lots and lots and lots of cycles within my family system until I, figured out, not that I don't ever do those things still, because I
Right.
do. It's
Right.
hard to disrupt those patterns sometimes, but I just feel like it's important to talk about because I just hear this so much. I mean, especially, and hate to be a call out gal, but especially with, like, the elder Gen X, like, this is a
Mhm.
really hard line for most of them that I've heard about, is like, well, you don't let kids get away with stuff and they have to be
Yes.
grateful and da 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 da. And I'm like, I know the boomers ruined us, but come on, guys, like, step up. Let's honor
Yep.
ourselves here. Honor the child in you that
Mhm.
wasn't met all the
Yes.
time
Yes.
with love
Yep.
and kindness and caring.
And we pushed ourselves through. And it's like, wow, can we have some compassion for that version of ourselves? Like, actually recognize that maybe that wasn't necessarily what we needed at the time. Maybe we didn't need
Mhm.
to push ourselves through. And so now that we're parents, how can we show up differently? How can we show up maybe with what we may have needed at that time
Mhm.
in our lives and offer that to our children instead?
Okay, so then let me ask you this, because I know this.
Quick ad break. If you're feeling stuck, disconnected, or like your spirit and mind aren't speaking the same language, Jen Taylor, LCSW, might be exactly who you're looking for. Jen is a spiritual psychotherapist who blends Reiki healing, spiritual psychotherapy, astrology, coaching, tarot, and oracle card readings to help you gain clarity, release blocks, and reconnect with your inner wisdom. Whether you're navigating emotional healing, spiritual growth, or a life transition, Jen offers intuitive guidance grounded in real therapeutic support. Learn more or book a session with Jen Taylor where healing meets insight. You can check the show notes for how to get in touch with her.
This is the big fear that I hear a lot of people say.
Mm-hmm.
They are very worried that if they do this gentle, soft approach, that
Mm-hmm.
this child will now be codependent and never leave the house and never accomplish anything. So how can you provide a distinction between children who are not securely attached and end up staying and doing all that versus
Mm-hmm.
they receive that gentle love and whatever, and then, oh, weird, they met the appropriate developmental milestones as, they
Mm-hmm.
turned into adults.
The way that I respond to that is that there's a spectrum of gentle, right? I'm not talking about gentle with no boundaries and no accountability for anything. There's a
Mhm.
difference between this idea of I'm going to hold them to this really high standard and they need to be perfect at all times and they need to be grateful 100% of the time, and this other side of the spectrum of just like let them do whatever they want. They're going to be totally fine. There's the spectrum in there where we can
Mhm.
have this approach of seeing them as another human being. We can have them be able to have their emotions and it not be coddling. We're helping them name their emotions and then saying, and what action do you want to take? Versus like, oh, you're sad. Let's just sit in your sadness. We're not teaching our kids how to be victims. We're teaching them to acknowledge themselves and then to take an aligned action to move forward. That's the type of parenting that I'm talking about. It is marrying. It's the dance between being kind, compassionate, empathetic, gentle, if you will, and also still holding some accountability because, of course, we're not saying we don't want our kids to have any standards. We do, but do they have to be perfect 100% of the time? They're a human being. None of us are
Right.
perfect.
Right. Yeah, that's why with this youngest one, I'm like, especially in math, when she was really struggling in math, if she got a C, I was like, good job, dude. Like, you worked really hard on that paper. I don't give a shit about straight A's. I just don't.
Mhm,
It just
mhm.
does not affect me one way or another. I know there are people out there that care a lot about that, and that's great for you. I don't.
Yep.
But well, I was going to ask you something. What was it? Because I know I was thinking, yeah, because a lot of people think that co-regulating means just letting them do whatever the hell they want. And it's like, no, it's about you staying regulated, independent of what they are doing in their dysregulation. So
Mhm.
that's what, like, how would you advise somebody who, like, let's say their teen
Mhm.
is, I don't know, getting in a little trouble at school, or, some of the minor stuff that
Mhm.
teens can do. Um, how would you advise someone to approach that with your approach?
The very first thing I would say is do not approach them while you're still emotionally charged, right? And to your point about regulation, we need to take ownership and responsibility for ourselves as the adult in the relationship. And so that means first work through our own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We're pissed, we're upset, work through that, get to a place where we are now calmer so that we can actually have a conversation with our teenager, and we can actually and I go back to the pace, lead, right? We pace with them, and then we lead. But we cannot lead our children if we are dysregulated and we're screaming at them.
Right.
All that happens is they pick up on our chaotic, emotionally charged energy, and now they've got the same thing. And now before we know it, we're just all screaming at each other.
Mm-hmm.
Or conversely, we have a kiddo who just completely retreats. So we're
Shuts
screaming
down.
and they shut down, and they're in their own head shaming themselves the entire time. Because again, when they're doing something wrong, they're not a bad person. The behavior is not what was expected, right? Or the
Yes.
behavior was technically negative. We do not need to shame them as a human being to address the behavior. And that's the distinction. And we cannot do that when we're emotionally charged, because most of the time we will say something that we don't mean, and our
Uh-huh.
kiddos cannot unhear the words that we've said. We can do our best to make repair, but they're never going to unhear what was said to them.
Yeah, it already hit their subconscious and programmed something. Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, you're right. Like, we can do our best to repair, and I think that makes a difference. But like, because I don't want any adults, like, creating a lot of shame in themselves for the things
Right.
that they've said. Like,
Right.
yes, we've all done it. We've all
Yes.
made the mistakes. You're gonna
Absolutely.
make
I
more.
own it
You're gonna
too.
make more,
And we
honey.
still do. And we still do.
Yeah,
We still do.
you're gonna make a lot more. But
Mhm.
we do have to be conscious and aware of the fact that their subconsciouses are programming in real time, all the time, every time. So
Mhm.
do choose the way that you communicate. And you're right, not being activated when you begin that conversation. That I started to get better about that with the second one, to where I'd be like, okay, go. And then I'd have
Mhm.
to, like, drill down to, like, what is the one thing you want to communicate in, like, a sentence and a half? Because
Yes.
I
Yep.
was a lecturer with the first one.
Mhm.
Surprise, he's a perfectionist. Like, I did all of that with him. And then I realized, oh, I'm being really hard. Like, and harsh. And
Yeah.
so I just really wanted to come from a place truly of love, which I know
Mhm.
people are like, but, like, that's the truth, is that I learned that I really didn't feel loved, and I didn't want children on this earth not feeling loved because of
Mhm.
me. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, it happened, but
Mhm.
I, I'm doing my best to continue to work on myself so that they don't, like,
Right.
stay there, and so that I can help others understand that too. But yeah,
Yes.
I think being really careful about the place that you start from is really important. How do you recommend placing structures and boundaries around your children without it being some ultra controlling because I said so situation, to,
Yeah.
communicating to them, this is a structure I'm putting in place for you, not at you or to you.
In my own experience, I have really been direct and upfront with, my need is to keep you safe. My need is to ensure that you are healthy. And ultimately, I recognize, you're in charge of your own happiness, but I would love for there to be that I've communicated all of that to them. And so
Mhm.
that's what I go back to when I'm putting a boundary in place, is that's a need I have as a parent. And so in order to meet that need, these are the structures that I have to put into place. And I don't say, so therefore, like, you need to be home at, 12 o'clock. It's more, I need to make sure that you're safe. I have a fear and a worry that there's, it's unsafe to be on the roads late at night.
Mhm.
So for me, the curfew is, 12 o'clock. And then I do ask for feedback, right? Like, tell me what your thoughts are on that. they could say, that's ridiculous, Mom. And I've gotten that back. Like, come on, everybody else stays out till 1. And I say, I can understand that. For me right now, this is where I'm at. I'm willing to be open to potentially discussing that, in the future. But for now, this is where it's at.
Yeah.
So now it's not just I'm laying down the law. Here it is. I'm giving you context for why I'm setting this boundary. And it's not over explaining. It's giving them context, right?
Yes.
And then it's invite them into the conversation. It doesn't mean you're going to bend. It just means they feel like they've had an opportunity to also discuss and say what their thoughts are. We acknowledge it. And then we can say things like, right now, this is where I'm at, and let's keep it the way it is, and we maybe can revisit it in the future. Because when we think about boundaries, and this is really important about boundaries, they're not walls, right? They're not like, this is it forever and always. It's, this is what works for me right now, and we have the option to change that.
Yes. There have been a couple of things like that I've said straight up, like, I can't force you, like, because the 23-year-old moved out at 18, and then he just moved back like a year and a half ago because he decided he wanted to go back to school and not have to deal with like all that on his own. But when he first moved out, I was like, I recognize that I cannot like tell you to share your location with me, but like I'm asking you to, because I had friends who would be like, oh, if you pay for the phone, then da
Right.
da da.
Then you
And
get
I'm
to
like,
that. Right.
and I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to force anything because I never said when I pay for this phone, that means I get any sort of control over you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yep.
so there's been several things that I'm like, please, for me, will you understand that this is what I really need right now? And usually the kids respond really well to stuff like that. Now, that's not like the same as what we were talking about with teens, but I do feel really like validated and affirmed because I'm like, okay, great. That's those last couple of years. That's how I've approached those conversations. Even with
Yep.
my 11-year-old, there's times that I'm like, yeah, and I don't want you to feel like you don't get control, but like that's not going to work for me. So that's not what we're going to do because I don't feel safe with you doing that. And I
Right.
have
Right.
to feel safe.
And the way through it, too, is to have some balance where we do give them some agency over certain decisions, right?
Yes.
Instead of
Which
just
is so
making every
hard.
single decision, which is
Yeah.
hard. It's hard at times. Like you were like, oh, that's not going to turn out well, but go ahead.
Yes. Oh my
Right into that
gosh. There's
space.
so many things like that where I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
go do that then. All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
But like because listen, I'm a worrier. Okay. Like I freak out about some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest has expressed lots of pain about not being able to like stay the night with friends when he was growing up, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer used to be, and were you sexually abused? Okay. Well, then it looks like it worked. I've tried to
Mm-hmm.
release some of these fears, okay?
Right.
So I let her, like, ride her bike to friend's house in the neighborhood, things like that. Like, it's still very hard for me every single
Mm-hmm.
time, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
get a little, "Is she okay?" And I check her little location,
Mm-hmm.
things like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to let her it's hard for me to watch her kinda make the wrong decision sometimes. Like, even
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if this is where you say you're going, go there. Don't go
Mm-hmm.
anywhere else without checking in with me first. And then
Mm-hmm.
she'll go to the next place without checking in, thinking I'm not going to know, but because
Right.
in her mind, she's just do. Like she doesn't
Right.
understand why it's a big deal to me. So she's
Yeah. In her
like
brain, it's not
literally
a big deal.
around the
Mm-hmm.
corner,
Right.
and I'm like, sissy, okay. How many times are we going to have this conversation? Because I was the kid who did it too. And I get in so much trouble. And the stuff that was said to me was really stupid because it's like, this was a personal attack on you that like
Right.
I made
Right.
a childhood mistake. So I try really hard not to approach it like that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's not even a natural inclination for me to approach it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Because like every single time you have a choice and this is what we're doing. I mean, it's if I'm being 100% honest, because it's literally just these little, like, she went around the corner or whatever, I don't even punish her for it. I mean, that's just the truth
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that much. If she were to do something really outside the line, then I would. But otherwise, I'm like, I caught you again.
Right,
You were
right.
right there. I'm just asking
Mhm.
you to check in with me because here's the
Yes.
deal. She's very secretive. She's very internalized. Like I can see that
Mhm.
about her. I can see that she really struggles to come to me with stuff,
Mhm.
like about
Mhm.
anything, even the
Mhm.
smallest stuff, the big stuff, anything. And I want her to feel safe with me. And so I just keep saying, like, I didn't ask you that question because you were going to be in trouble because of the answer. I asked so that you would understand I'm safe to talk to you
To
about
share
it.
that with.
And it's
Right.
taken, about a year now of just like constantly checking in
Mhm.
about things like that. And she will
Mhm.
share stuff with me now. And
Mhm.
because she knows, like, let me clarify this. I don't keep big stuff from her dad, but, like, here's the smallest example. She wants to start her own little podcast, okay?
Mhm.
And so we were talking about that, just all girly about it, and looking at stuff, and I wanted to tell her dad because I knew he'd be really excited, but I was like,
Mhm.
"Is it okay if I share that with dad?" And she was like, "Nope." And I was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
okay." So I'd
Mhm.
really try, like, I don't just go, "She doesn't want you to know this," and I literally
Mhm.
don't say anything
Mhm.
until she gives me permission. So I'm trying to, like, earn her trust and whatever, but
Mhm.
this is just who she is. She's just
Mhm.
very internalized, and
Internalized. Yep. Yep.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so tricky because I want her to
It
feel
is
safe.
tricky, and you said something just a minute ago, we've been repeating this for over a year. I think that's the key, though, is that recognizing this isn't gonna be a one and done. Most often, we
Mhm.
do have to repeat over and over again, and until it becomes part of the new way that they see things or understand things. Think of us as adults. We have to do things multiple times before, it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's maybe how I might
Mhm.
wanna approach this."
Gotta build that new neural pathway. Yes,
Yes.
and a little perfectionism tendency, we start to judge the fact that, like, we know better. We know the information now. Why are we not immediately perfect at that?
Yes. Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
am I not responding better 10 out of 10 times?
Well, we were said it earlier, where I'm talking about this stuff about like being emotionally regulated before, we have the conversation. That's not to say that I do that 100% of the times. I
Right.
absolutely call myself out. And that's when I say repair is important because we are going to misstep. And then we
Mhm.
have the option of making repair. And I say that that is key, especially for parents, is going to your child and actually acknowledging, I messed up. I did not approach that the way that I needed to. And I am sorry are
Yeah.
powerful words. And
Yeah.
then the action that follows up, really putting in the effort to make a shift, right? Not repeating the same thing over and over again. Because again, if we're a parent, we're saying, I'm sorry I did this, but then I continue to do it. What are we demonstrating to our kids?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll just be really honest. I used to be really sucky at repair because I had never had that modeled for me in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt very scary and vulnerable to say I'm sorry to somebody. I wasn't great at
Right.
apologizing to anyone. Over text, I could, like,
Mm-hmm.
to my
Mm-hmm.
husband, even, like, sorry for being bitchy yesterday or whatever. But I was not like, it was, I don't know, it's probably still a struggle. Like, honestly, I've told this story before, but honestly, my daughter has helped me with this because, we were she was mad at me one day. She was laying in my bed and she was mad, because I wouldn't do something, I don't remember what it was, and she Googled, like, how to make your parents feel bad when they upset you or something, right next to me, and she starts reading off what Google is telling her, but the answers are actually how to apologize to your parents if you've, like, made a mistake, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how she had typed it in Google, but she was saying it out loud as she was doing it, but I was like, "Oh, that's interesting that those are the responses coming up." But one of the, like, it gave a couple of example scenarios, and one was, if you took your parents' car without asking. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like, "I'm so sorry for taking your car without asking." And she was so mad, and I was doing a really good job of staying regulated that day because she can get
Mm-hmm.
really theatrical with her mad. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, "Okay, I love you," whatever. And it was escalating, and so finally she leaves my room, and probably 10 minutes later, she comes back in, she was like, "Sorry for taking your car." And I was like, "Oh my god, I love that," because she's learning how to, like, feel safe to apologize, and you know what? that makes me feel so much safer to apologize too, like truly. So that's kind of our thing now. That's what we'll say to each other. If it's just some quick little dust up about whatever, nothing like crazy, we'll say that to each other. And it makes me so happy because it's such a safe way for me to apologize too.
Yeah.
Like with
Yeah.
the older one, I can always, like, it's so easy because I can be very authentic and whatever. But with her, it's
Yeah.
like harder to explain that stuff, So I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, I love this.
I also think with perfectionists, it tends to be something that's a struggle to apologize because now we're
Really?
admitting we're not perfect. We're admitting that we messed up. As a
Yeah,
parent,
that
too, the
makes
one thing that I will
sense.
offer on that point as well is it goes back to expectation. If we expect our kiddos to apologize when they have made a mistake, maybe we need to expect the same things of ourselves.
Yes, yeah, and it's just something that I always knew, and oh god, I would be sitting in my room like, "Okay, how do I say it?" Like, I mean, I just sucked at it really bad. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's a thing I have to continually work through all
Work
the
on.
time with everyone.
Yep.
I mean, I totally agree with you. It's just one of those,
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear even that perspective about it being perfectionism because I still uncover ways that that's, sneaky in my life, but yeah, it's just really that's why I gave her so much grace about it because I've never
Mm-hmm.
been the apologize, person
Right.
because
Right.
what's the point if they don't mean it?
If they don't mean it. Exactly. Exactly.
Man, I have loved this conversation. Okay, so tell us, kind of restate what it is you do, where people can find you, your books, your podcasts, the things.
All the things. So again, I am I'm a pattern interrupter, right? I work with teenagers all the way through adults to help understand those patterns that are holding you back and work with you, whether it's to move forward professionally or personally. I am on the web at kaminiwood.com. Also on Instagram and Facebook with the handle It's Authentic Me. And I do have a podcast. It's called Rise Up, Live Joy Your Way. It's actually kind of a mini cast or small little episodes on certain topics that seem to be either top of mind for me or top of mind with my clients. So
I love that. I will make sure to include all of those links in the show notes as well. And I would love to have you back sometime. I've really enjoyed you.
thank you. I've enjoyed this conversation. The time just flew by.
I know it really did. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and press stop if you'll hang out for 1 sec.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share. Emotionally Unavailable. All right, that's it from me. So make sure that you check out the show notes for links. And until next time, let's all just keep swimming.
INDEPE and cut.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Big news! Wayfair's tax refund sale is on now. Right now through March 2nd, you can score up to 70% off furniture, decor, appliances, rugs, and more. With fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Plus, amazing flash deals. Shop Wayfair's tax refund sale now to make the most of your refund with huge savings through March 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.